"Get away from my daughter," the woman screamed at the hospital janitor. "I don't want some dirty worker touching her." Marcus Williams quietly returned to mopping floors. Nobody knew that 3 years ago, he was the country's most famous heart surgeon. Political revenge had destroyed everything. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. "Get away from my daughter," screamed the angry woman, grabbing her little girl's hand. "I don't want some dirty janitor touching her." Marcus Williams stopped mopping the hospital floor and looked up in shock. He had only been trying to help the crying child who had dropped her teddy bear. But the woman was staring at him with disgust, like he was something dangerous. "Ma'am, I was just," Marcus began gently. "I don't care what you were doing. Stay away from us." The woman pulled her daughter toward the elevator, whispering loudly enough for everyone to hear, "That's why you have to stay away from people like that, honey. They're not like us." Marcus felt his face burn with shame. Other people in the hospital lobby were staring at him now, some with pity, others with the same disgust as the woman. He was just a janitor in their eyes, someone to be ignored or looked down upon. What they didn't know was that Dr. Marcus Williams had once been the most respected heart surgeon in the country. 3 years ago, Marcus had been living a completely different life. He owned a mansion, drove expensive cars, and saved lives in operating rooms. Then everything changed in one terrible moment. During a complex surgery, Marcus had made a decision that saved one patient but resulted in the death of another. The dead patient was the son of Senator Robert Kingston, one of the most powerful politicians in America. Kingston destroyed Marcus's life with ruthless efficiency. He used his connections to have Marcus investigated for malpractice. He bribed witnesses to lie about Marcus's competence. He made sure Marcus's medical license was revoked and that no hospital would ever hire him again. "You killed my son," Kingston had said coldly. "Now I'm going to kill everything you are." Marcus lost his medical practice, his house, his savings, and his reputation. His wife left him, taking their daughter and saying she couldn't be married to a failure. Friends abandoned him. The medical community turned their backs on him. The only job Marcus could find was as a night janitor at City General Hospital, the same hospital where he had once performed miracles in the operating room. Every night, he mopped floors and emptied trash cans in the place where he used to save lives. But Marcus had a secret that no one knew about. Late at night, when the hospital was quiet and most staff had gone home, Marcus would slip into empty operating rooms and practice surgery on medical training models. He stayed current with medical journals, studied new techniques, and maintained his skills even though he could never use them again. He also did something else that would have shocked the people who treated him like he was invisible. Marcus used his janitor access to observe surgeries from the observation deck. When he saw doctors making mistakes that could kill patients, he would find ways to anonymously warn them. He slipped notes under doors, sent anonymous emails, and sometimes even called in anonymous tips about potential complications. Dr. Patricia Chin, a young resident, had received several of these mysterious warnings. They had saved her from making serious errors during difficult surgeries. "Someone is watching out for me," Patricia told her colleague Dr. Amanda Foster. "I keep getting these incredibly detailed medical advice notes, but I have no idea who's sending them." "Maybe you have a guardian angel," Amanda laughed. Patricia studied the latest note, which had warned her about a rare complication that could occur during the surgery she was scheduled to perform the next day. The medical knowledge was extraordinary, far beyond what most doctors possessed. "This person knows more about heart surgery than our entire department combined," Patricia said thoughtfully. Meanwhile, Marcus continued his double life. By day, he was the invisible janitor that people looked through or looked down upon. By night, he was the anonymous guardian angel of City General Hospital, using his expertise to save lives from the shadows. Everything changed on a cold Tuesday evening in December. Senator Kingston's granddaughter, 8-year-old Isabella, was rushed to City General with a rare heart condition. She needed immediate surgery, but it was the most complex procedure imaginable, one that only a handful of surgeons in the world could perform successfully. Dr. Amanda Foster was the head of cardiac surgery, but she had never attempted this particular operation. The nearest specialist was 5 hours away, and Isabella didn't have 5 hours. "We have to try," Amanda told Isabella's panicked parents. "I'll do my best, but I have to be honest, the chances aren't good." Marcus was mopping the halls outside the cardiac wing when he overheard the conversation. His blood ran cold when he realized whose granddaughter was dying. Senator Kingston, the man who had destroyed his life, was about to lose the most precious thing in his world. Marcus's first instinct was to walk away. Kingston had shown him no mercy. Why should Marcus show mercy to Kingston's family? But then Marcus saw the little girl being wheeled into surgery. She looked exactly like his own daughter had at that age, blonde curls, bright blue eyes, and a brave smile despite being terrified. Marcus couldn't let an innocent child die because of adult hatred and revenge. He knew he had to act, but how? He couldn't reveal himself. If Kingston discovered that the janitor was actually Dr. Marcus Williams, it would cause an explosive scandal that would hurt everyone. Marcus made a desperate decision. He slipped into the observation deck above the operating room, pulled out his phone, and called Dr. Foster's emergency line. Dr. Foster, this is your anonymous advisor. I'm watching your surgery prep, and you're about to make a fatal mistake. Amanda nearly dropped her phone. Who is this? How are you watching my surgery? That doesn't matter. What matters is that Isabella Kingston will die if you proceed with your current plan. You're planning to use the Fontaine procedure, but this child needs a modified Norwood operation with a very specific technique that I'm going to walk you through. I can't take surgical advice from an anonymous caller. Dr. Foster, look at the girl's cardiac imaging again. Look at the position of her left ventricle. Do you see the unusual placement? Amanda looked at the scans and gasped. How did you see that? I missed that completely. Because I've performed this exact surgery 12 times successfully. I'm going to guide you through every step, but you have to trust me. For the next 4 hours, Marcus walked Dr. Foster through the most complex heart surgery of her career. He guided her around every complication, warned her about every potential problem, and taught her techniques that weren't in any medical textbook. Make a 2mm incision at the base of the left atrium, Marcus instructed. You'll see a small nodule that looks like scar tissue. Don't remove it, it's actually a critical part of her heart's electrical system. How do you know all this? Amanda whispered as she followed his guidance perfectly. Because I've seen this condition before. Keep going. You're doing beautifully. In the observation deck, Marcus watched his own hands tremble as he guided another doctor through surgery using his own expertise. It was agonizing to watch from above instead of being in the operating room himself, but he had no choice. Finally, after 4 grueling hours, Isabella's heart began beating normally on its own. We did it, Amanda said, tears streaming down her face behind her surgical mask. You did it, Marcus corrected gently. Isabella is going to be fine. Please tell me who you are. I need to thank you properly. Marcus looked down at the successful surgery, at the little girl who would live because he had set aside his hatred for her grandfather. Just someone who believes that every child deserves a chance at life. He hung up the phone and quietly left the observation deck. The next morning, the hospital was buzzing with news of the miraculous surgery. Isabella Kingston had survived an operation that should have been impossible for a community hospital to perform. Senator Kingston was overwhelmed with gratitude. He personally thanked every doctor, nurse, and staff member he could find. My granddaughter is alive because of the incredible people at this hospital, he announced to the media. I will never forget this debt. Marcus watched the press conference from the hallway, still wearing his janitor uniform. Kingston walked right past him without a second glance, never knowing that the man he had destroyed had just saved his granddaughter's life. But Dr. Patricia Chen had been thinking about her mysterious advisor, and she was determined to solve the puzzle. She had noticed that the anonymous tips always came during night shifts when fewer people were in the hospital. Patricia began paying attention to who was around during those late hours. She noticed that the janitor seemed unusually knowledgeable about medical procedures. He cleaned operating rooms with a precision that suggested he understood their importance. One night, Patricia decided to test her theory. She left a complex medical journal open in the break room and hid nearby to see who would read it. Marcus entered the break room during his rounds, saw the journal, and couldn't resist. He began reading the article about advanced cardiac procedures, making mental notes about new techniques. Patricia stepped out of her hiding place. That's pretty advanced reading for a janitor. Marcus looked up, startled. I like to learn things. Really? Most people can't even pronounce half those words, let alone understand them. Marcus carefully closed the journal. I should get back to work. Wait. Patricia sat down across from him. I think you're the person who's been helping me. The anonymous advisor who saved Isabella Kingston. Marcus's heart raced, but he kept his expression neutral. I don't know what you're talking about. Patricia pulled out her phone and showed him the number that had called her during the surgery. This number is registered to the hospital's internal phone system. Only staff members have access to those phones. Marcus realized he had made a crucial mistake. Dr. Chin, I really need to get back to cleaning. Marcus Williams, Patricia said quietly. That's your real name, isn't it? Marcus froze. How do you know that name? Because I looked you up. Dr. Marcus Williams, former cardiac surgeon, one of the youngest doctors ever to perform a successful heart transplant. You disappeared from the medical world 3 years ago after some kind of scandal. Marcus sat down heavily, knowing his secret was finally exposed. What are you going to do? I'm going to ask you why one of the most talented heart surgeons in the country is working as a janitor. Marcus told Patricia everything about the surgery that went wrong, about Senator Kingston's revenge, about losing his license and his family and everything he had worked for. But you saved Kingston's granddaughter, Patricia said in amazement. The man who destroyed your life, and you saved his family. She was just an innocent little girl. I couldn't let her die because of adult conflicts. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Marcus, what happened to you was wrong. You were used as a scapegoat for a tragic but unavoidable surgical complication. It doesn't matter now. My medical career is over. Maybe not. I have an idea, but it's going to require a lot of courage from both of us. Patricia's plan was bold and risky. She wanted to go public with the truth about Marcus's identity and what had really happened 3 years ago. She believed that if people knew the full story, especially the part about Marcus saving Isabella Kingston, it would force a re-examination of his case. The medical board that revoked your license was influenced by political pressure, Patricia explained. But if we can show that their decision was based on false information and political revenge rather than medical facts, we might be able to get it overturned. And if we fail, you'll be destroyed just like I was. Then we better not fail. Patricia reached out to medical colleagues, investigative journalists, and legal experts. She gathered evidence showing that Senator Kingston had used his political influence to manipulate Marcus's malpractice case. The breakthrough came when a former medical board member agreed to testify that he had been pressured by Kingston to vote against Marcus despite believing that Marcus had done nothing wrong. Kingston threatened to cut federal funding to our hospital if we didn't revoke Dr. Williams's license, the board member admitted. We knew it was wrong, but we were scared of the political consequences. When the story broke, it created a sensation. The public was outraged to learn that a talented doctor had been destroyed by political revenge, and that the same doctor had anonymously saved Senator Kingston's granddaughter. Isabella Kingston, now recovered from her surgery, appeared on television with her grandfather. I want to thank the doctor who saved my life, Isabella said in her sweet 8-year-old voice. Grandpa says he used to know this doctor, but they had a fight. I think grown-ups should say sorry when they fight, don't you? Senator Kingston looked uncomfortable but nodded. Yes, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes too. The pressure on Kingston became overwhelming. Medical professionals across the country were demanding that Marcus's case be reviewed. Patient advocacy groups were calling for justice. Even members of Kingston's own political party were distancing themselves from his actions. Finally, Kingston requested a private meeting with Marcus. They met in the same hospital where Marcus had saved Isabella's life, Kingston in an expensive suit, Marcus still wearing his janitor uniform. I destroyed you, Kingston said without preamble. I used my power to ruin an innocent man because I was crazy with grief over my son's death. Your son's death was a tragedy, Marcus replied. But it wasn't anyone's fault. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, we can't save everyone. I know that now. But my rage blinded me to everything except revenge. Kingston paused, struggling with his words. You had every right to let Isabella die. I would have deserved that punishment. Isabella didn't deserve to suffer for our conflict. You're a better man than I am, Dr. Williams. And you are a doctor, regardless of what any medical board says. Kingston used his political influence for good this time. He pressured the medical board to review Marcus's case with new evidence. He publicly apologized for his actions and admitted that he had manipulated the system for personal revenge. 6 months later, Marcus's medical license was fully restored with an official apology from the state medical board. But Marcus faced a choice. He could return to his old life of wealth and prestige, or he could chart a new course with the wisdom he had gained from his years in exile. Marcus chose something different. He opened a free clinic in the poorest part of the city, providing medical care to people who couldn't afford it. He also started a program training former inmates and people with criminal records to become medical assistants, giving them second chances the way he had been given a second chance. Dr. Patricia Chin became his partner in the clinic. You taught me that the best doctors aren't the ones with the biggest egos, she told him. They're the ones who remember that every patient is someone's beloved child. Marcus's ex-wife reached out to him, wanting to reconcile now that his reputation was restored. But Marcus had moved beyond the bitterness of his past. "I forgive you," he told her. "But I'm not the same man you married. My experiences changed me and I like who I've become." On the 1-year anniversary of Isabella Kingston's surgery, she visited Marcus's clinic with her grandfather. "Dr. Marcus," Isabella said, hugging him tightly. "Grandpa says you're my hero." "You're my hero too, Isabella. You taught me that forgiveness is more powerful than revenge." Senator Kingston watched his granddaughter with Marcus, seeing the genuine love between them. "I spent 3 years trying to destroy you," he said quietly. "But instead I think I helped create something better than what you were before." Marcus looked around his clinic, filled with patients who had nowhere else to go, staffed by people who had been given second chances. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us become the foundation for the best things we do. That evening, as Marcus finished his rounds at the clinic, he thought about the journey that had brought him here. He had lost everything, his wealth, his prestige, his old life. But he had gained something more valuable, the knowledge that true worth wasn't measured by success or status, but by how we treat others when we have nothing left to gain. The janitor who had once been a famous surgeon had become something even better. A healer who understood that the greatest medicine was compassion, and that the most important patients were the ones everyone else had given up on. And sometimes, late at night when the clinic was quiet, Marcus would remember that angry woman who had pulled her daughter away from the dirty janitor. He wondered if she would ever learn that the man she had treated with such contempt had once held human hearts in his hands and still carried the healing touch that could save lives. The secret wasn't that Marcus had been a surgeon. The secret was that he had never stopped being one. Not in the operating room, not mopping floors, and not in the free clinic where he had found his true calling. A real healer doesn't need a title or recognition. They just need a heart that refuses to stop caring, no matter how much the world tries to break it.